Coming up on 5 Minute News. Kremlin papers show Putin's plot to put Trump in White House. California approves first state-funded guaranteed income plan. And over 60 dead, dozens missing as severe floods strike Europe. It's Friday, July 16. I'm Anthony Davis. Vladimir Putin personally authorized a secret spy agency operation to support a mentally unstable Donald Trump in the 2016 US presidential election during a closed session of Russia's National Security Council, according to what are assessed to be leaked Kremlin documents. The key meeting took place on January 22, 2016, the papers suggest, with the Russian president, his spy chiefs, and senior ministers all present. They agreed a Trump White House would help secure Moscow's strategic objectives, among them social turmoil in the US and a weakening of the American president's negotiating position. Russia's 3 spy agencies were ordered to find practical ways to support Trump in a decree appearing to bear Putin's signature. By this point, Trump was the frontrunner in the Republican Party's nomination race. A report prepared by Putin's expert department recommended Moscow use all possible force to ensure a Trump victory. Western intelligence agencies are understood to have been aware of the documents for some months and to have carefully examined them. The papers seem to represent a serious and highly unusual leak from within the Kremlin. Independent experts say the documents appear to be genuine. Incidental details come across as accurate. The overall tone and thrust is said to be consistent with Kremlin security thinking. There is a brief psychological assessment of Trump, who is described as an impulsive, mentally unstable, and unbalanced individual who suffers from an inferiority complex. Meanwhile, the Kremlin's war on independent journalism in Russia has escalated after the Projekt investigative media outlet was outlawed on Thursday in an act of revenge for leaking the documents. California lawmakers on Thursday approved the first state-funded guaranteed income plan in the U.S., $35 million for monthly cash payments to qualifying pregnant people and young adults who recently left foster care with no restrictions on how they spend it. The votes, 36-0 in the Senate and 64-0 in the Assembly, showed bipartisan support for an idea that is gaining momentum across the country. Dozens of local programs have sprung up in recent years, including some that have been privately funded, making it easier for elected officials to sell the public on the idea. California's plan is taxpayer-funded and could spur other states to follow its lead. Local governments and organizations will apply for the money and run their programs. The State Department of Social Services will decide who gets funding. California lawmakers left it up to local officials to determine the size of the monthly payments, which generally range from $500 to $1,000 in existing programs around the country. The vote came on the same day millions of parents began receiving their first monthly payments under a temporary expansion of the federal child tax credit that many view as a form of guaranteed income. More than 60 people have died and dozens were missing yesterday as severe flooding in Germany and Belgium turned streams and streets into raging torrents that swept away cars and caused houses to collapse. Recent storms across parts of Western Europe made rivers and reservoirs burst their banks, triggering flash floods overnight after the saturated soil couldn't absorb any more water. I grieve for those who've lost their lives in this disaster, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said during a visit to Washington, expressing shock at the scope of the flooding. She pledged that everything would be done to find those still missing, adding, "Heavy rain and flooding doesn't capture what happened." Among the worst-hit German villages was Schuld, where several homes collapsed and dozens of people remain unaccounted for. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen pledged to help, and Pope Francis sent condolences, with his office saying the pontiff was praying for those injured and missing, as well as those who have lost their livelihoods. The full extent of the damage was still unclear, with many villages cut off by floods and landslides that made roads impassable. Many of the dead were only discovered after floodwaters receded. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen Podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.